Hello, Eating Disorder Hope members. Thank you for joining us on our first meeting of the year. We will start with our presentation here in just a minute, but I just wanted to give you some information. One, most of all, is thank you for being a member of Eating Disorder Hope. You know, this whole organization is founded on wanting folks to find healing, recovery, and hope in their eating disorder journey. So we're so honored to have you here and delighted to get to interact with you more in this brave new technology world, right? So with these support groups, we're doing these once a month, and they're all listed on the membership page if you need to jot down those dates. What I want you to know about these is we're very concerned about your privacy, and so for this first one, we will not be sharing any images or names or voices. However, in time, we could do that if that's what the membership chose to do. This technology allows us to just share your voice, share your name, or share your image if you have a camera on your computer. So think about that and give me feedback if you think that's something you'd be interested in doing down the road. For now, we're just going to do these meetings with an educational presentation up front. Often they will be by me, Jacqueline Eckern. I'm the founder and president of Eating Disorder Hope. I'm also a licensed professional counselor. And these meetings will, the majority will be by me, but we'll have some amazing colleagues of mine present too on all kinds of different topics. So I hope you'll attend every week. It should be fun and interactive and a great way to just get that support we all need in this long journey of recovery. So a little bit of housekeeping for you. On your right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a place where you can raise your hand. And if you do that, that'll let me know that you're entering a comment or a question, and I'll be happy to address those. And then at the end, we'll have some discussion about those questions. I'll go ahead and announce what the questions, comments, insights were, and then share with you some feedback on that. We'll take it from there. So I'm very excited about this presentation. For about 20 minutes is all it'll be, but I want you to really think about this, Johari's window. This was something that was pivotal to me in my evolution, both in grad school, becoming a therapist, and back in the day when I was in treatment, when a therapist shared this with me. So I am personally invested in this concept. It's no be-all, end-all answer, but it's certainly an interesting paradigm to observe ourselves in our eating disorder and think, in our eating disorder recovery. What could I take from this concept or theory that would make my life more fulfilling, healthier, and happier? So we'll be talking about applying these insights to increase your self-understanding and enhance your relationships. And again, I am Jacqueline Eckern, the founder and president of Eating Disorder Hope. So this is Johari's window. And it's a 4-quadrant box, basically, and it is a way of thinking about ourselves, as if there were 4 aspects to ourselves, if you'll entertain that idea. So the upper left-hand quadrant is the open self. And this is everything that you know about you and others know about you. And we're all very comfortable in that place. It's sort of our public persona that we feel good about. I'll go into it more in depthly, but that just gives you the nutshell version. And then another aspect of the self in the upper right-hand quadrant is your blind self. And this is information about you that you don't want others to know. This is information about yourself that you know, but you don't want others to know. And then the hidden self is information about you. Okay, sorry, let me go back because it's so important you get this. The blind self is the parts that people know about you that you don't know. So, for example, you might be observing that I'm uptight in this presentation, and I might not know that, and I might think I'm coming across really comfortable. Then in the hidden self quadrant in the lower left-hand side, that's the information you know, but you don't want others to know about you. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of gold there, because in our therapy, our journaling, in relating to close friends in our recovery journey, when we have the courage to share aspects of that self and feel it's appropriate, it can often create a sense of cohesion and closeness with others that we haven't enjoyed before. So we'll dive into that a little bit too. And then lastly, in the lower right-hand quadrant is the unknown self. This is the aspect of yourself that you don't know and we don't know, the audience doesn't know. So these are hidden things from our own view and others, but could be very rich to dive into, to learn more about ourselves. And the reason this particular paradigm is useful in eating disorder recovery is because it gives us a way to sort of have an upper view, looking down upon ourselves and the way we interact with others in our relationships, the way we communicate, the way we give and take feedback. It's also really helpful sometimes professionally or academically if you have to work in groups. But for our purposes today, we're really focusing on it for gaining insight into enhancing our interpersonal relationships and knowing and loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. So this looks very technical, I know. I'll try to make it more tasteful. So again, the open free area is who you are publicly. And it would be a really interesting journal exercise, or at least get a sheet out and write down some adjectives that you think describe you in that arena. When you go out in public or you're with friends and family, the self that you represent to the world, what is that like? How do you feel when you're that self? Like for me, I feel like I, in my open self, often am fairly warm and gregarious. I'm also, I think, you know, if I were to think about the way others probably see me in that open space, my public persona, they might pick up on some guardedness, you know, professional boundaries and things like that, but also just ongoing recovery, that I'm not an open book. And then again, on this right-hand side is the blind area, the self that we don't know but others see. And that's really interesting to contemplate as well. And again, journaling, art, music, there's all different ways that we could try to express this aspect of ourself if we're not comfortable communicating it. And it's important because when we think about, what is it that others know about me that I don't know? Does it matter? You know, you've heard that saying, what others think of me is none of my business. And that can be really helpful if we're feeling insecure or people pleasing and all of that. But another way of looking at it is, if we're looking at it constructively, what do I not know about myself that others know that would help me sort of integrate my soul and my mind further in my recovery journey? And the interesting thing about this blind area is, since we don't know it, it's really hard to know. So we have to ask for feedback. And I don't know about you, but I'm always very tentative about asking for feedback, because I'm always sort of like, okay, tell me, but tell me gently, because it can be painful. It can be painful to get feedback that is hurtful or that we don't know about ourselves and we're not sure we're comfortable with. So this is something that many of us that are in recovery struggle with, knowing how to ask for feedback, how to take care of ourselves in that process, and how to deal with the feedback when we get it. Again, we'll go into this a little more deeply, but I'm just kind of giving you the overview. So then if we go down to the third quadrant, the hidden area, this is what others don't know about us, but we know. You know, our deepest self, our soulful self that we are when we're alone. And sharing that aspect of ourselves is a great way to grow closer to others, right? They can share with us about themselves a little bit, and that creates greater intimacy. We can share about ourselves, and that can create greater intimacy. So it sounds like it would be fabulous. But along the way, growing up in a life experience, sometimes we have situations where we feel we got burned when we shared ourselves, where we disclosed something about our feelings or insecurities or goals, and we're shut down, put down, ridiculed, all kinds of things. And if and when that happens in somebody's life, they often have a tendency to put up some boundaries then and think, I'm not going to share so much about myself with everyone because I don't want to feel that again. So I'm going to keep this hidden area to myself. But the problem with that, if we just make a decision to hide ourselves based on a few painful experiences where it didn't go well, we lose out on the opportunity to have the rich, close, emotional intimacy with others that we all hunger for and need. Okay, we'll come back to that one too. And then lastly, the unknown area. That's pretty fascinating. You know, is that subconscious? Is that unknown skills and gifts you have? It's many things. And the only way that we can find that, these unknown aspects of ourselves, are a mixture of things. Others sharing their observations with us, self-discovery, really examining our values and our thought processes about life and conclusions we've drawn, and were they correct conclusions or incorrect conclusions about life. Sometimes I've heard that called, not paradigm, sorry, the word's eluding me, but these decisions that we make about life and how life works or who we are in the world are all pivotal in our self-esteem. And when we get to know this unknown area more, we often can find things that are gold that we didn't know about ourselves, and that others didn't know. And we may choose to share it, or we may just keep it to ourselves. Like there's, you know, people that have found out that they have a skill in art or music later in life, or kids that are in high school that pick up a ball for the first time in a specific sport and run with it. There's just so many different ways that we can figure out things about ourselves all through our life journey that we didn't know. And the thing that's also really cool about this lower right-hand quadrant, the unknown, is it's a discovery process. It adds a little bit of romance and joy to life, to learn that this isn't all that is of me, that I am growing and changing and learning more, and I'm excited to see who I become in the process. So here I am sharing with you a painting. It's not the greatest shot, sorry about that. I tried to get the lighting as best I could, but it was a painting I did. I dabble in oil painting and have since I started my eating disorder recovery journey years and years ago. And what I was trying to depict here is Johari's window, excuse me. And what it means to me on a gut level, not just up here on my head, right? Because it's so easy to be in our head, but to be here between the heart and the head and express from my soul what it means to me. And so obviously the eyeball in the upper left-hand quadrant is this aspect that I see, you see, it's under scrutiny and I know it. And it's this public persona. And I've got that pretty down, you know. I've spent a lifetime at 51 figuring out how I want to portray myself in public, and I'm comfortable there. Then this other one with the closed eye, which didn't come out too clear, but those are the eyelashes of the closed eye. And I am shooting to depict there the things that others know about us, but we don't know. And wow, you know, that feels really vulnerable, doesn't it? Even in the dark colors that I used in this and the gloss over to mute it, I'm trying to show that it's a very sensitive, deep aspect of this self. If I don't know these things about me and you know these things about me, do I want to know it? Can I handle it if you share it with me? If you share something with me that's too painful, how do I cope with that? Or how do I give you feedback about this part of myself that you say you observe in me when I disagree that that is part of me? So it's a very intimate spot. But in asking for feedback from others in this arena, we can grow significantly. One, we can hear good things, right? And that feels good. It's nice to get some shots in the arm about our gifts intrinsically, if we're kind, if we're loving, if people enjoy being around us, but also what they see in detail about our personalities that we might not recognize. So when we ask for feedback from others about ourselves, if we're going to go there, it's wise to recognize we might be a little vulnerable. And are we in a good place to ask for that feedback? Is it a good time to ask for that feedback? If someone gives me feedback that I'm unhappy with or find emotionally upsetting, can I pause with it? And can I not react immediately out of emotion, but can I say, thank you for sharing that. I want to give you some thoughts about that, but I want to process it. And you don't even have to respond at that time. So there's a lot of ways to deal with feedback from others professionally, in relationships, and that sort of thing, right? So the lower quadrant is what I know about, or what we know about ourselves, but we don't share with others. And it's intense, you know, there's a lot to all of us. We're, you know, if you've seen graphs or images of the conscious and the subconscious, it's really fascinating to think about all that goes on under the surface of our public persona, and what we hide and what we don't share. And there's so many interesting things to be gained from looking at these aspects of ourselves, these parts of ourselves that are private and that we're reticent to share, or we fully intend to never share. And there's no judgment here. There's no judgment on that you have to share it. But often when we're in treatment or working with a therapist, or in even a support group, folks will share aspects of themselves that they don't typically share, and it can feel very vulnerable again. And how others react to that will largely, in most cases, impact how much we will continue to share with them. And so when we share something about ourselves that is personal and vulnerable, it is probably wise to dab our toe in the water first, not just give them the whole kitchen sink, right? That's how we develop intimacy with others. We sort of test the water. I'll share a little bit about about myself, and I'll see how you react. And it won't be too much. It won't be so significant that if you react poorly to what I shared, that I am hurt or devastated. But I'll share enough to test the waters, to say, how'd that go down? Did they respond nicely? Were they empathetic? Could they relate? How'd I feel in their reaction? And then as some time goes on in that relationship, and again, it could be one at work, it could be one with a fellow student or academic, or it could be a family member or friend. This is a slow process, this emotional intimacy where we reveal ourselves to others. And sometimes folks in recovery have been so isolated that we're a little rusty on our sharing skills with ourselves. And so sometimes it can be easy to either overshare and then feel like, oh my goodness, I feel so vulnerable, I can't stand it, and the reaction's painful. And it can even be somewhat triggering to our eating disorder behaviors because it pushes so many buttons emotionally. So always I caution you to be slow and steady like the turtle, not the hare, and sharing yourself emotionally and private aspects of yourself with others. Over time, it can enhance and enrich a relationship so beautifully, and it's important, but take it slowly. And then this last quadrant is just obviously a question mark, and it's the unknown aspects of ourselves and that we don't know and that others don't know. And the reason I say gold is I can remember back in a grad school class where they were talking about, you know, what we suppress about ourselves or the hidden self, and then taking it even a step further to what we just don't know but could potentially know about ourselves. And there's a lot of ways to get in touch with this aspect of ourselves. One is new experiences. And that can be tough for folks in eating disorder recovery too, right? We often are, at least I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of control fanaticism in recovery from control. And so I like things to be, I want to know what's happening. I don't want to go on a camping trip and not know when we're coming back and have a car to leave if I want to and know what the game plan is. It's hard for me to just throw myself out there, say, and be vulnerable. But when and if I were to do that, just as a case example, I might discover things about myself that I never knew before by taking that risk. And others might too. Like it's just throwing this out there, but like, let's see, maybe one morning I'd wake up, my hair's a mess, I have no makeup on, and I go out and I find that when I'm sitting around the fire having breakfast with the other campers, that I feel more authentic. I feel more myself. I'm out in nature and I don't have my public persona on so much, and it feels good and it lets down stress. So, I mean, that's just a hypothetical example, but it could be very good to challenge what we don't know about ourselves by taking risk or pushing our envelope. And there's all different ways that we can do that. We even do it with little kids, right? When they're babies and we give them a new food to try and they discover, oh, I like this or I don't. And they're pretty funny in their reactions of letting us know. I don't know if you've ever done it, but if you give a child, one that's old enough to handle it, Pop Rocks for the first time, that's a really funny reaction. But anyway, back to the unknown self. I really encourage you to think about ways that you might be interested in getting to know aspects of yourself that are not apparent to you now or apparent to others. And journal about this. Do some art about this. Share it with those that you feel comfortable. But that pushing of ourselves to grow, to become more engaged in life, to be more intimate with our relationships is what makes our recovery worthwhile. It's not the weight, it's not that our lives become more stable. I mean, those are all good benefits of eating disorder recovery, but the real joy in recovery is the capacity to go deeper, more authentically in relationships and engage. And we have to know ourselves well to do that. So these are these 4 areas that I was just explaining again, defined of Johari's window. And with that, I will let you comment and I'll address questions that I see here from the audience. And just to refresh you, for this first Eating Disorder Hope members only support group, I am just responding to questions that people are entering in the question or chat box in your right-hand control area. I'll share that, not who said it, just share the question or the insight and then discuss it with you. But I would like you to consider if in the future you would be comfortable maybe asking your own question. And what's cool about this technology is I can just click on your microphone if you raise your hand and give me permission to do so, and then you could ask your own question and we could all interface. But we'll take this 1 month at a time and develop our own process of what we're all comfortable with. The most important thing is that you feel that your privacy is protected and that you don't feel too vulnerable here. I really want this to be a safe place for you to get some education, to get some support, and to get some tools that you can test and see how they enhance your own eating disorder recovery journey. And remember, you can take what you want and leave the rest. We're going to be going over all kinds of different ideas, concepts, suggestions for eating disorder recovery enhancement, and you choose what you want. We really at Eating Disorder Hope respect your own inner wisdom and decision making about what's best for you and your journey. So with respect, these are all shared and ask that you use your own judgment of what's appropriate for you. Please also know this is not therapy. Though I am a licensed professional counselor, this is just basically a presentation to educate you about some tips and techniques that can enhance your recovery and to offer support, with a goal that in time we either create some closed support groups where we can meet online, or we can continue in this format and just have the discussion kind of through me. So I have some questions from our members. And one is really interesting. It's how do you control your emotions when people say hurtful things to you? Yeah. Okay, so I think what you're talking about there and referring to is if you do ask for feedback, disclosure, right, about yourself, and someone says something that's hurtful, how do you take care of yourself in that situation? That's a tough one. I know personally I'm a very sensitive person, and so it's a vulnerable place to get feedback from others. And what I would suggest, and what I've seen other clients do back in the day, is to process the feedback before responding. Obviously, if it's something light and they say, hey, I like your hair today, you look beautiful, there's no reason that you have to do a lot of processing. But let's say you're in your review with your boss, or you're in a rush at a sorority and somebody sits you down and says, I think you're a great gal, but I think you talk too much. And I think you would do better if you listen more in discussions. Wow. Okay. That would really hurt, right? That would be hard to take. And it might be something that you're comfortable responding to right away, or it might be something where you're like, okay, thanks for that feedback. I appreciate your willingness to share with me what you see about me. And I need some time to think about that, and I'd like to get back to you with my thoughts on that. So that's a great way to respectfully receive the information, give them feedback, that you value them, because hopefully in most cases the person giving the feedback is someone that you trust, or are in a relationship deep enough that you want to work on the relationship and you want to do things to improve your way of relating. Then after that, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of folks that are in eating disorder recovery have a tendency towards obsessive thinking, right? So you leave, let's say, the sorority meeting with this, oh my God, I talked too much, I made a fool of myself, I'm embarrassed. And you think back and catastrophize all these things. And we have to not do that. We have to stop ourselves when we get feedback that we're uncomfortable with. Never use it to beat yourself up. Never ruminate on it unnecessarily. And recognize that it may be entirely inaccurate. So when you get that feedback, you can even park it for a while. You could talk about it with a therapist, with a close person. You could journal about it, or you can just simply take a walk and think about it and really process it. And when you're ready, you could get back to the person with the feedback. But you are enhanced by their feedback if you can take it without allowing it to harm your self-esteem, because you now have greater knowledge of yourself. Another question is about the hidden aspects of self. How do you know when you can share your eating disorder recovery with others? Yeah, so I know a ton of folks in eating disorder recovery, since we've been running Eating Disorder Hope since 2005. And there are people across the board on this. Some never say anything. One of my closest friends that I met in treatment when I was 22 still doesn't tell anyone she had an eating disorder. And so, and that's worked really well for her. She's happy. She's very well adjusted. She just doesn't want to feel vulnerable and exposed. I mean, she will share it with her real inner circle, but that's it. And then I know others that are, have written books and that speak professionally and love to share their eating disorder with themselves. So part of knowing when and how to share your story of recovery is to know yourself and know how you feel when you share aspects of yourself that make you maybe feel vulnerable. and to practice perhaps with a therapist or someone you're close with, sharing your recovery story or just briefly sharing it, even role playing, and testing the reaction. So for example, let's say you're in a new relationship and it's a couple of months into it and you're out to eat and someone's talking about dieting or weight that you're really close to, and you want to say, hey, you want to share something with them about what that does to you, or that's triggering and how you would address that. You want to be careful, right? You want to make sure it's the right time for you. You check in with your gut. Is this a good time? What risk would I like to take here? And if you do want to share it, you could say, you know, I feel vulnerable right now because you're talking about dieting. And the reason I feel that way is because I've had some struggles with food and body image issues. And I try not to focus on dieting, but rather focus on health. And I'm wondering if you could help me honor that and not talk about dieting with me. Something like that, right? All right, well, we are almost at 30 minutes and I don't want to abuse your time here. I'm really grateful you're here. I loved being here with you. I hunger for more verbal interaction with you. So please give me your feedback afterward. If you would be open to sharing your voice in the next meeting in February, at the end of February, and having some dialogue after the presentation, I think that'd be a great sort of soft start for us. We are so honored to have you as members of the Eating Disorder Hope. There'll be tons of events and articles and blogs and videos coming your way as members, and hope anything we can do to make your journey more joyful and encourage you, please let us know. God bless you and have a great day. Thanks.